Welcome to this week's Moonlight of Emuna, Parshas Tazria-Metzora. This week's learning should be Schus for a full Shlema, Finus and Feitel ben Yehudis, Yudah Menachem ben Rechal per Malkalei, Shmuel Shnei Zalman ben Chevachav ben Menachem Mordechai ben Ophira, Shlam Stacham bas Shifra, and Lila Nishmas, Charnamasha bas Menachem Mendel, Ratza bas Menachem Mendel, and Heni bas Yechiel Mechel. So we have this week's Parsha. It's a difficult Parsha, especially when both are together, Tazria-Metzora, a lot about the Tsaras and all these things that we have a hard time connecting to. It's often translated as leprosy, which is not. This was a spiritual ailment. This was a something that had to do with a person not behaving in the proper way. And there's lessons, as we always talk about, there's lessons in everything. Even though tsaras, we don't have tsaras today, we don't have a kohen coming to check a person and lock him up for 7 days, but on this parsha, how do we make it relevant for us everyday life? So we have a Gemara. The Gemara in Erechim, Daf Tesvav says, "Amrei Shlakish, Ma'id Chsiv Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora." What does the pasuk say? Teres HaMetzora. So he says, "Zois Tia Terasei Shel Moitzi Shemra." Metzora is short for Moitzi Shemra. This will be the laws, the Torah for a Moitzi Shemra. And the Marsha asks the question that where does Rish Lakish see this in the word Metzora, that it has to do with Moitzi Shemra, right? Moitzi Shemra is saying false things about other people. So the Marsha points out, because the pasuk should have said Zois Tia Teres Hatzarua, right? The proper, my diktuk is not always great, but the proper way to call somebody afflicted with tzara should be a tzarua, not a Metzora. So he says the fact that the Torah changed it from tzarua to Metzora, right? Rish Lakish realized from that it's going on Moitzi Shemra, that's the Avera that brings tsaras. And the Gemara goes on over there to talk about other things about Lashon Hara and Moitzi Shemra, why these are such bad things. So on this, I saw a beautiful idea from the Gilyon Teres HaBitachon. He says as follows. He says, in that Gemara, if you go a little bit further in that Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Yossi ben Zimra that Kol HaMesaper Lashon Hara kilu kafar be'ikar. Whoever speaks Lashon Hara, as the Gemara there is talking about Lashon Hara, it's as if he denies Hashem's existence. He denies God. He kafar be'ikar. He denies everything. And he quotes a pasuk, but the question is on this Gemara is, why is somebody who speaks Lashon Hara as if he doesn't believe in Hashem? He didn't speak bad about Hashem. He spoke bad about his friend. He spoke bad about his neighbor, right? He didn't speak bad about Hashem. So why is he somebody who denies the existence of God? So Rabbeinu Yonah gives a famous answer that is often quoted. He says that a person who speaks Lashon Hara, he thinks he's not really doing anything wrong. I'm just speaking, it's just words, right? And therefore he acts as if he's in charge of what he decides to speak, right? When a person does an Avera, so he can explain, my Yetzer Hara overcame me. A person understands that Hashem told him not to do certain things, so he can't do them. But I'm just speaking. What's the big deal? I'm in charge of my own lips. I'm in charge of what I say. Hashem doesn't really care about what I say. Hashem, it's not really in Hashem's rishus. It's up to me what I say. And they rationalize it. They say, okay, when a person does an Avera, so he understands that he's doing something wrong, right? He says, a person does an Avera, he says, I know I shouldn't do this, right? It has a more concrete action, right? I'm not explaining this so well, but when a person does an Avera, I'm not supposed to eat this thing that's not kosher. I know I'm not supposed to eat it, but what should I do? My Yetzer Hara is very strong. So I overcame it, but I didn't think that I was doing what was right. I understand that I do something wrong. But when a person speaks Lashon Hara, they don't even realize that they're doing something wrong. What was it? It was just words. What about the fact that Hashem told you not to? So that's how Rabbeinu Yonah explains why you're denying God's existence. You're thinking that Hashem's not in control of everything, only like concrete actions, but not on your words. But he offers another idea. He says he has a different idea, which is based on Chavetz Chaim and the Gra that we'll learn. That he says that the actual, not just, the way Rabbeinu Yonah describes it is like there's different types of actions, and when it's a sin, when it's an avera that's just with your mouth, it doesn't. That's more of a denial of God, because you can't blame it on your Yetzer Hara, and you can't blame it, and you're basically saying that Hashem doesn't care what I do. But he says different. He says I want to say that the actual words of Lashon Hara, are denying Hashem's existence. He says, because we know, everybody knows the famous Gemara. I'm not going to go through it. If you want to look it up, it's the Gemara Yuma Daf Tes. The Gemara over there says, why were the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? So he said the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of the three cardinal sins of Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Shvichas Damim. But the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because that even though they learned Torah, the words of the Gemara, they did all the mitzvahs. They learned Torah, did all the mitzvahs. So why was it? Because of sinas chinam, right? And the Gemara goes on to say that you see that sinas chinam is as bad as the three cardinal averas combined, right? He says, and the Gemara goes on to discuss that in the first Beis Hamikdash, even though they were doing the three cardinal sins, they still trusted in Hashem. And then the Gemara goes into an argument, which one were worse, the first Beis Hamikdash or the second Beis Hamikdash? And the Gemara there seems to come to the conclusion, right, that maybe the Gemara does come to the conclusion. Rabbi Elazar at the end says that the earlier ones were better, right? Because and the proof of that is the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed but rebuilt 70 years later. The second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and 2,000 years later we're still sitting without a Beis Hamikdash. So you see that it's a worse Aveira Sinas Chinam than the three cardinal sins. And the Chofetz Chaim says that Sinas Chinam it comes out in the clearest way with Lashon Hara, right? We talk about other people. You're not even getting anything out of it. You're not, most Averas, okay, you're not supposed to do them, but you got some physical pleasure out of it. So we can not excuse you, but we can understand why a person had a weak moment and gave into some physical pleasure. Lashon Hara doesn't even give a physical pleasure. It's just pure hatred. It's pure Sinas Chinam. I don't care about the other person. I don't worry about the other person. I'm just talking badly about him. And therefore, says the Chofetz Chaim, that really the Aveira that caused the second Beis Hamikdash to be destroyed was Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is the purest form of Sinas Chinam. That's what caused the Beis Hamikdash to be destroyed, which is a horrifying thought. Now the Gra says as follows. The Gra says that when the Gemara is going back and forth saying who were really worse, who were better, the people who lived at the time of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash or the ones at the second Beis Hamikdash, and the Gemara goes back and forth. The Gemara argues back and forth till it comes to the conclusion. He says that why would we think the first ones, they did the three cardinal sins, they murdered, they committed idolatry, they committed adultery, right? What was they? He says because the reason is, as the Gemara said to us, that they had bitachon in Hashem, which means that even though outwardly they looked like Rishaim, right? On the external, they were murderers, idolaters, adulterers. They were on the outside they were Rishaim, but inside they had bitachon in Hashem, right? Inside they were good. On the outside they couldn't control the Yetzer Haras. And what is we know? Chazal tell us Rachmana Liba Bay, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants our hearts. So the people at the first Beis Hamikdash, even though they were acting terribly, their outside actions were terrible, and they were punished for it. But inside, they were still true to Hashem. They still relied on Hashem. Because he says bitachon is the truest relationship with Hashem. Right? If I have bitachon Hashem, even if I'm not acting well, but that means that Hashem has my heart. My heart is connected to Hashem. That doesn't mean, that's not an excuse. I still have to work on not doing Averis. But at least their hearts were good. The outside was very bad, but their hearts were good. But the second Beis Hamikdash were the opposite. Their hearts were bad. The Sinas Chinam, they hated each other in their hearts. They hated each other. They spoke about each other. On the outside, they looked very good. They learned Torah. They did Chesed, or at least they donated to Chesed campaigns. But on the inside, they were rotten, right? Because they hated each other. They were rotten on the inside. And he quotes the Gemara says on the pasuk V'Ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha, which is a very short pasuk in the Torah. He says that V'Ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha comes from lacking bitachon, or from it. When people don't keep V'Ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha, loving your fellow like yourself, from it comes lack of bitachon. All of the jealousy, all of the hatred in the world, all comes from not keeping the mitzvah of V'Ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha and lacking bitachon. And he says that's why the earlier Gullus, that the Persians, the Gullus that they went into after the first Beis Hamikdash, those were people who looked bad on the outside, but were not so bad on the inside. Their tumah was on the outside. But we're in Gullus Edom, where the world pretends that they're righteous and they're pure and they care about others, right? But on the inside they're rotten. They see everything backwards. But they pretend the Gullus we're in. They pretend to be righteous. They pretend to care about the underdog, right? They don't always identify the underdog right, because on the inside they're rotten, and we're stuck in a gullus that matches the Aveira that we committed that sent us into gullus of Sinas Chinam. And he explains further. He says, why does a person not have, how does a person have V'Ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha? How could I love somebody else basically unconditionally, right? It's only if I have Emuna in Hashem. I have to have strong Emuna in Hashem. Why? Because if I don't have full Emuna, that Hashem is the one who does everything in the world, that everything comes from Hashem, so I can't love every Jew, right? Because if somebody does something wrong to me, so how could I love him? I'm going to think that he did it. Only when and therefore I have the right to hate him. I'm not going to love him. But if somebody understands with strong Emunah in Hashem, and he knows clearly that nobody could do anything to him unless Hashem wants it, so then if somebody does something to me, I don't hate that person, because I realize this is my cheshbon with Hashem. I don't know why I deserve to get this patch, why I deserve to get something wrong, but it's from Hashem. It's not this person. So then I can disregard the person who's doing it to me and still love him. And I realize I have something. Either I did some avera that I have to correct with Hashem, or something in my relationship with Hashem, right? But I don't hate my friend, and therefore I could love somebody even when they're doing something negative to me, even when they're doing something bad to me. But without that Emuna in Hashem, that everything ultimately comes from Hashem. So how could I love every single Jew? There are people who do things wrong to us. That happens all the time. Only with Emuna to say it's not really him, or it's not my cheshbon with him. It's my cheshbon with Hashem. Then a person could understand that I could love this Jew because he's just a tool in Hashem's hands. It's not him, right? Like the famous mashal they give, right? When if you take a stick and you hit the dog gets angry at the stick, right? It starts to bite the stick. It doesn't realize that the person who's holding the stick is who really caused him the harm. So we make fun of that dog, but really we're the same. Somebody does something to us and we get angry at that person. That person is just a stick. He didn't do anything to us. Hashem did something to us. Oh, so now we got to fix our relationship with Hashem. So he says that any failing in V'Yavtarecha Kamoicha, which we said causes all the hatred, all the sinas chinam, all the lashon hara, all the jealousy, all of these things, it comes because we don't have a strong enough emunah in Hashem. The more we work on our emunah in Hashem, the easier V'Yavtarecha becomes to us, the less we have this problem of lashon hara and sinas chinam and all these other things that cause the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, and that's how we rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. I've quoted it here before also. That's the famous Minchas. The Sefer HaChinuch talks about the Isra of Nekama is because a person takes revenge means he's not recognizing, somebody hits me and I want to go hit him back. That by its nature means I'm not recognizing that it's coming from Hashem. Otherwise, otherwise I'm just a dog biting the stick. And he quotes that Rav Yaakov Emden said that even if I can't find a reason to be down l'kaf schos a person does something wrong to me, and I cannot figure out any reason to be down l'kaf schos, I should just say that Hashem took away his bechira. For whatever reason, he had to do this, even though it looks like it was caused by evil. But if I got hit with it, it's all him. And he says we learned this from David HaMelech and Shimi ben Gera. We don't have time for the whole story. Those of you who are familiar with Navi, you'll know the famous story with Shimi ben Gera, who cursed David after David had done good things for him, and they wanted to do something. And David says, "Hinicha eloi, leave him alone. Veikalel, let him curse. Ki Hashem amar lo kalel David. Hashem is the one who told him to curse David." Right? Okay, that's a very extreme example. David had the power to do something about it, but he says it's not Shimi who's cursing me. It's Hashem, and for whatever reason I deserve this kind of embarrassment, this kind of cursing. And therefore we understand now why the Gemara said that Lashon Hara is like you're kaifer be'ikr, that somebody who speaks Lashon Hara, he's denying Hashem's existence, right? Because if somebody did something bad to him, if I believed with Emuna Shalema, if I believed that it came from Hashem, so I wouldn't talk bad about this person. I wouldn't say anything negative about this person. What's the difference? This person had the misfortune of being the stick in Hashem's hands. Why would I talk about him? He didn't do anything to me. Hashem did it to me, and I have to work that out with Hashem. I have to do tshuva. I have to work on my relationship with Hashem, or whatever reason. There's many reasons why Hashem sends us messages in these ways. But this person, why would I talk bad about this person? This person has no reason. It gives the other example, right? That if the king decrees on somebody a certain punishment, and the person who's being punished gets upset at the person who's carrying out the punishment. His issue's with the king. It's not with this person. This person has no say in the punishment. He's just carrying out the king's orders, right? So Lashon Hara, when I speak badly about somebody, I'm showing that I deny the existence of Hashem. My Emuna is not strong. If my Emuna was strong, I would never say Lashon Hara, because what does this person, what he did to me, have anything to do with who he is? I still love him because I have a chiva V'Yavtarecha Kamoicha. Or if a person talks bad about somebody else, let's say not that he did something to him, but I say, oh, this guy, he's nebuch, he's unsuccessful. He's tried 15 businesses, they all failed, or he can't get a job, or whatever, right? You're by doing that, you're denying Hashem's existence, because obviously whatever situation he's in, and maybe he does have to take stock of his life and try harder or make smarter decisions, but the reason he's here where he is today is because that's where Hashem put him. That's where Hashem wanted it, for whatever reason, however he came to that. But for you to start knocking that person means you're saying that your success is because you're smarter than him or you're better than him. No, your success is because Hashem gave you success, and his misfortune is because Hashem gave him misfortune. So anytime, and you could say this with any type of Lashon Hara, you make fun of the way somebody looks, you make fun of the way, anything about a person, you're denying Hashem's role in that. And that is kafir bikr, you're denying Hashem's existence. And therefore, he says that's why. What's the punishment for lashon hara? That's what we started with, right? Tazria-Metzora. What's the punishment? Saras. Why? What's the idea? So that the Sefer Chinuch writes again. He says that the root of this mitzvah of tzaras is that we should establish likvoya b'nafshei seinu. You should establish in our neshamas, in our souls, ki hashgachas Hashem baruch hu pratis al kol echad ve'echad b'bnei adam. That we have to know and we have to incorporate it into our very being that Hashem's divine providence is specific with each and every single person. And Hashem watches every single thing and controls every single thing, right? In other words, the idea is we take this Metzora, we put him aside for 7 days. We want him to think about what he did, right? He spoke lashon hara. He hated his friend. It didn't have, and now he got this tzaras, which is not a physical ailment like we mentioned. It's a spiritual ailment. A person is supposed to be alone, and part of the Metzora process is he's alone for 7 days. He has to sit there and think about it. Does he get the message, or does he still think that he just needs some kind of cream, right? And who does he go to? Who does he go to be declared a Metzora? The Kohen. Why? What do we normally go to Kohanim for? A person does an Aveira and he has to bring a carbon. The Kohanim are the ones who show us the way back. We come, we tell the Kohen, the Kohen's there when we do Smicha, those who are doing Daf Yomi, we learned about the halachas of Smicha last week. The Kohen is the one who the primary purpose of the Kohen was not just the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash, but to bring people closer, to show them the error of their ways. He goes to the Kohen declares him a Metzora, the Kohen locks him up for 7 days, so he should learn, he should think about tshuva, and he should think about what he did. That's the purpose of tzaras, to remember our Emuna in Hashem, to remember not to speak badly about people, to build our achdus, to work on our v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That's the idea of this whole Zois Teres HaMetzora, and that's something we could learn nowadays just as much as they did in the Beis Hamikdash. We don't have a kohen to lock us up, so we have to lock ourselves up. Not literally, but we have to think about why certain things in our lives get us upset that shouldn't get us upset. Why other things trigger us the way they do. Most of them can be traced back to the idea that we don't have our Emuna and B'tachon Hashem is not strong enough. I wish you all a beautiful, wonderful Shabbos.